Very sad news breaking here out of Washington, D.C. A tragic death. The death of Chuck Schumer's political career. It's gotten so ugly. They're like setting the corpse on fire before he's actually officially dead. We're going to show you all of the garbage that came dropping down on the head of the minority leader for the Democrats in just a second. Also, Anna Navarro wanted to pick a fight with Scott Jennings, and well, if it was a battle of wits, I think you know who's going to come out on top there. In fact, Jennings took on everyone at that roundtable last night, and you're going to like your Jennings fix for the month. And finally, MSNBC invited the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on. I don't think Morning Joe is used to having an intelligent person on their panel, but he showed up and he showed them all up. You're going to see that and glory in all of it coming up right now. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Yeah, that's right. Those might not be the top stories you're seeing on cable news, but they're the top stories here because we don't follow along that parade. We march to our own drummer. We look at the news that you care most about and what you're going to get best informed by. And also, as an observer of the news and headlines, I think you like to be amused a bit by pulling back the curtain on how the media does their job. And that's what we excel at. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to our channel so you don't miss an episode. And I want to reiterate, this guy right here, he's going on vacation very, very soon, like really soon. And while I'm on vacation, I'm going to be jumping in here and giving you regular but not frequent, frequent but not regular observations on big news stories that are going on. And I want you to catch all of those. So you got to subscribe and get those alerts going so that you can be up to speed, because it's not going to be, every day at noon, that kind of thing. And give us a like right now on this episode. I promise you're going to like it. Microplastics are infiltrating every part of our lives. It's serious stuff. Scientists right now estimate that we consume about a credit card's worth of plastic every week through our food, through our water, even the air we breathe. One study found plastic particles in 100% of human lung samples. Nobody is safe from exposure. It gets worse. These plastics don't just sit in your body. They cross the gut lining. They leach into your blood. They disrupt everything. They've been shown to alter gut bacteria, suppress your immune response, and increase your risk of neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disorders, and even cancer. Some plastic toxins like BPA mimic hormones, interfere with fertility, and damage DNA. Even if you eat clean and avoid packaged foods, you're still being exposed. You can't opt out. But after all that bad news, here's the good news. Your gut, your own gut, can help you fight back. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition is a potent ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi, proven to break down BPA, helping you detox from the inside out. It doesn't just support digestion, it helps protect your cells, your brain, your hormones, and your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut was designed to protect you. You just have to give it the right tools. Right now, you can get 25% off with code Larry at mybrightcore.com/Larry. Or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore. You can get up to 50% off and free shipping. Yeah, in fact, funny true story, my ex-wife just let me know that she called Brightcore, talked to them, used the code Larry, and she got 50% off and free shipping. See, if my ex-wife can do it, you can do it. The number is 888-462-4779. That's 888-462-4779. The fallout of the disaster of the Democrats' government shutdown continues, and it's just unseemly. It's frankly wrong and inappropriate to just sit here and laugh at them as they continue to fall apart. We're not the type to just dance on the grave of our political opponents as they get buried 6, maybe even 12 feet under, right? That's not our style. Who am I kidding? It's fantastic. First, we'll start with Harry Enton over on CNN that delivered the really bad news for Chuck Schumer, for the Democrats, and of course for the host and producers at CNN.
How are Democrats feeling overall about Schumer? We've seen a lot of comments from some House Democrats, but what about overall?
What about Democrats nationwide feeling about Chuck Schumer? I think the word of the day is Terrible, 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 terrible. To quote another Charles Barkley when it comes to Chuck Schumer. Look at this. Least popular Dem Senate leader ever. I looked at all of the polls going all the way back since 1985. The one who has the lowest rating among Democrats is, in fact, Chuck Schumer. Look at this. He's underwater with Democrats. His own party, he's underwater. He's at -4 points. That makes him the least popular guy for a Dem Senate leader going all the way back since the mid-1980s at least.
Do you have a sense of why?
Why? It's because Democrats, they want a fighter. They want a fighter. That's why. Take a look here. Democrats, Dems in Congress do too little to oppose Trump. During the first term, it was just 46% in 2017. That's the percentage of Democrats who said that the Dems in Congress are doing too little to oppose Donald Trump. Look at where we are now, 69%. That is an increase of, get this, 23 points. The super duper majority of Democrats believe that the Democrats in Congress are not doing enough to oppose Donald Trump. And that, of course, is a big, huge criticism of Chuck Schumer. And that is why he is underwater.
As animated as Harry Enton is, and there's a little bit more here, and it continues to be bad news for Chuck Schumer. A couple of observations here. First of all, look at the sads on the host of this show here with the red jacket. Look at how miserable she is. And again, it's unseemly. It's wrong to dance on the grave of Democrats and their partners in the media. But if it's wrong, I don't want to be right. Okay. Number one. Number two, if you look at this, and I feel sympathy for Chuck Schumer, I have to say, I'll admit it. I feel sympathy for him because unfortunately for Chuck Schumer and fortunately for the rest of us, it appears that the base of the Democrat voting bloc who responded to this CNN poll are complete and utter morons. They are so counterintuitive. So we just come off this 40-day disastrous shutdown that hurt the American people, hurt your neighbors, hurt your military, hurt your air travel. It got so bad that even Democrats are like, all right, enough. This is awful. And Democrat voters in the base like, you're not doing enough. You've got to oppose Trump. By the way, this is at the same time that Democrat leadership are lying in front of cameras saying, listen, we can't do anything because the Republicans control the House and the White House and the Senate. So they've got all the control. If the government shut down, it's all their fault. And their very own base is saying, do more. While the Democrats are saying, we can't do anything. It's just exquisite. And by the way, it's a disaster of their own making. This is what they get. You see, they've spent the last 10 years telling you that Donald Trump is Hitler, telling you that Donald Trump is a fascist, telling you that Donald Trump is worse than Stalin and Hitler combined, telling you that if Donald Trump were president, that would be the end of our Constitution, our democratic process, and we wouldn't have another election, even though we just had an election. But they've said all of that. And so their base is so riled up and so frothy and so out of their brains that they think, my God, if he's that bad, you've got to stop him. Do whatever it takes. Burn down the Capitol. We don't care. Just stop him. And of course, the Democrats who have been saying all of that about Trump know that that's not the case. So they're like, well, I don't know what we can do. And the fact is they can't do anything. So they're screwed. They can't do anything. Their base demands that they do more. When they try to do something, it's a disaster. They finally pull the plug and their base continues to say it's not enough. And it's all they're doing. It's all their fault. So enjoy this.
Criticism of Chuck Schumer, and that is why he is underwater.
I knew you were going to do the dip. All right.
I always do the dip. I need my exercise in the morning.
There has been talks of a challenge to Schumer. What are you saying on that front? Who looks like they're in place to do it?
Okay, so you see this opening slide here, and you see, of course, that Chuck Schumer is underwater with Democrats nationally. But of course, the ultimate way to get Chuck Schumer out of office is to beat him in New York State. So how do New York State Democrats feel about Chuck Schumer? And take a look here, the net favorable among New York Democrats. Chuck Schumer is above water with the Democrats in his home state, but just by 16 points. Look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running way ahead. If she decides to challenge Chuck Schumer come 2028, she's got a real leg up on the competition. I dare say at this point she would be the favorite to beat him, which would be something that would just blow my mind, even just a few years ago, given that Chuck Schumer, of course, is a New York born and bred type of guy.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Look at that,
numbers
30
there.
points ahead. My goodness gracious.
That's a lot. All right, Harry Enton, you're always 100% ahead of the curve.
Ah,
I do appreciate you.
thank you.
All right, so we'll see. I personally think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is more interested in running for president because, being a senator, that's actually a real job. I mean, in some respects, especially compared to being one out of 435 members of the House. And I'm not saying that being president isn't a hard job too, but let's face it, that she's not contemplating being president versus being senator. She's contemplating running for president versus being a senator. And frankly, I think it's a much easier lifestyle and much more lucrative to stay in the House of Representatives, where you never have to worry about ever losing an election again, basically, and then running for president every 4 years or so and making all that money you make from being a superstar on the national stage. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. I often am, but at least I admit it. Meanwhile, what about that challenge to Chuck Schumer? Because those numbers, unsustainable. A few people are speaking out about it, but mostly people who aren't in the Senate, understandably. But here is another Democrat. We talked about him yesterday, Ro Khanna. He appeared on, I'm sorry, is that Don Lemon's show? Don wore a hoodie for the occasion. Ro Khanna apparently will go to the opening of an envelope. So yeah, hey, Congressman Khanna, you've got another media hit. I'll take it. I'll do it. Wait, I haven't told you who it is. I'll take it. I'll do it. It's Don Lemon. All right, I'll take it. I'll do it. Okay, Ro Khanna, tell us.
If Chuck Schumer called you today, or he dropped by your office, or you went by his office, what would you say to him?
I'd say, look, Senator, it's not personal. I respect some of the things you've accomplished in your career. I get that we would not have had the Chips and Science Act if it weren't for your leadership. I get that we would not have had the Inflation Reduction Act, but for your leadership. I appreciated what you did with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But you know what? You've just lost touch with where the base of the party is. You've lost touch on foreign policy, where you supported the war in Iraq and then a blank check to Netanyahu, and you refused to endorse Mamdani. And then this is the second time you've had the shutdown fight, and you've caved both times. And it's time for you to gracefully make way for a new generation.
Okay, so that's Ro Khanna in the House. Of course, he has no say in the Senate, but one wonders if his allies in the Senate have given the green light for this kind of pressure campaign. As we mentioned yesterday, I speculated that Chris Van Hollen may be one of the people behind the scenes pushing for this narrative. Meanwhile, he's not the only one. Seth Moulton, when last you saw him, he was opening up the door for a giant defamation suit from Donald Trump by saying on Morning Joe, not suggesting, saying on Morning Joe that Donald Trump, along with Jeffrey Epstein, took advantage of young girls. Here's Seth Moulton on CNN now, asked about Chuck Schumer.
Do you think that Chuck Schumer should step aside now and let someone else lead Democrats in the Senate?
I think it would be better. I think it'd be better than the status quo. And I hear this from Democrats all across Massachusetts. Everywhere I go, people say there's a leadership vacuum right now in the Democratic Party. We need new leadership. We've got to stop protecting this establishment status quo that's gotten us a second term of Donald Trump. And he's hurting a lot of people, a lot of Americans all across this country. A lot of people right here in Massachusetts are being hurt by this administration. I mean, the guy literally went to the Supreme Court this past weekend and pleaded with them to allow him to let Americans starve. What kind of president is this? And now we're going to give in to him? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, just fact check there. The president did not go to the Supreme Court to allow him to let children starve. That's despicable and disgusting. But again, this is Seth Moulton, the man who said that Donald Trump took advantage of little girls. No, what he did was he went to the Supreme Court to protect the constitutional independence of the executive branch from a lone judge trying to dictate what the executive branch could do. It's almost like he's trying to make sure that we don't have kings in this country, kings in black robes. You know, last I checked, there was a whole no kings thing going on here. The president actually protected the executive branch and the Constitution from a king in a black robe forcing money to be spent on a program where there was no money to spend on the program because the legislative branch has not funded it. But far be it for me to step in and do the job of Casey Hunt there on CNN, or for that matter, to fact check a congressman when he's lying through his teeth to you. But there you go. There's two congressmen now saying Chuck Schumer's got to go. Did you also catch there that he's blaming Chuck Schumer and the leadership in the Senate for Donald Trump being elected? It's amazing to me how they refuse to blame the people who are obviously to blame for losing the election, and that would be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They can't bring themselves to do that. But they're blaming Chuck Schumer for, I mean, honestly, you start to feel a little sorry for Schumer. And then you get over it quickly because you realize that he's odious and not worthy of that. Meanwhile, high-ranking Democrat analysts now say the quiet part out loud, which is this is no longer your Democrat party. This is not Kennedy's party or Clinton's party for that matter. This is Bernie Sanders' party, AOC's party, Zoran Mamdani's party, and in absentia, Fidel Castro's and Vladimir Lenin's party.
Represents part of a state that has the second highest number of people on Obamacare, on the ACA, who need these subsidies desperately, right? Who has SNAP, these are people who desperately need SNAP benefits. They're hurting their own constituents. And yet,
should Chuck Schumer go?
And yet, yes, Chuck Schumer should go. I'm sorry to say Chuck Schumer should go. I voted for him many times. I am ideologically quite aligned with where he is as a senator, but he's no longer capable of running this caucus. He's no longer capable of leading the Democratic Party. I am I am an establishment Democrat, and I'm here to say that Bernie Sanders is much more in line with where I and many other Democrats are today than Chuck Schumer is. And, if you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. So that just to underscore exactly how furious Democrats are today for putting the country through this without having an out.
So in the meantime, as we wait for members of the...
Okay, so just so you know what she just said there, she said, I'm an establishment Democrat, and Bernie Sanders is more in line with me and the mainstream of our party than Chuck Schumer is. And it's not like Bernie Sanders has changed. So what changed? I mean, it makes you wonder whether they're all having regrets for stopping Bernie Sanders immorally, unethically, maybe even illegally back in 2016 from getting the nomination from Hillary Clinton. You wonder if they can look themselves in the mirror and recognize that it's what they did to get them to this point now. The sad thing is that we have now said the senator of Vermont's name collectively 3 times, and that means, like Beetlejuice, he emerges. And, by the way, looking a little like Beetlejuice, at least in the corpse-like fashion that he brings to the table. Here's Bernie talking about Chuck and the politics of the moment.
Look, what you got right now, Chuck Schumer is part of the establishment. And I'm sorry to say that many people in the Democratic caucus are part of it. I would say we have 8 or 9 out of 47 people who I would consider to be progressives. So you can argue, and I can make the case that Chuck Schumer has done a lot of bad things. But I think getting rid of him, who's going to replace him? Who is going to replace him? The issue right now is doing primaries, getting people involved in the political process who are going to create a government and an economy that works for everybody, who have the guts to take on the oligarchs. So I think we need to take on the Democratic establishment all over this country.
And as a follow-up to that, because he didn't really say all of it out loud there because he's on MSNBC and it's not quite radical enough. They don't want to scare the mainstream left-wing liberal blue sky type Democrats who are watching MSNBC. So then he showed up on a podcast appealing to the fringe, and he said it all the way. He went one step further there about, Chuck Schumer, he's part of the establishment. He's part of the problem, but I'm not even focused on that right now. I'm focused on bringing all the new blood socialists into the party. That's the real next step here. So we can get rid of these people once and for all. Take them out of leadership. That ain't enough. No. It's the great replacement theory there in the Democrat Party, where they're replacing Pelosi and Schumer and the Clintons and all that with Zoran Mamdani's. I said this to you the day after the election last week, that the real story here is not Virginia, not New Jersey. The story is Zoran, not because he's the future of the party, but because that's where the party is today, not the future, today. And by 2028, as I said, you're going to have hundreds of Zoran Mamdani's running for office. Bernie, Am I right or am I right?
So what we have got to do is go above and beyond what happened yesterday, that terrible, terrible vote, and understand that, yes, you have parts of the Democratic establishment who are way, way out of touch with where the American people are or where we have got to go. And our job is to build a political movement. We are doing it with the 3 candidates for the Senate. I expect more to come with many candidates in the House, candidates all over this country running for local office. We're going to build that movement, grassroots movement, to do what Mamdani did in New York City, all over this country.
All over the country. This is Bernie Sanders' party now. It's been moving in this direction really since after 2016, but now it's solidified. It's over. So you've got Chuck Schumer, the most hated Democrat leader in the Senate in history, according to polls. We just showed it to you. They're all calling for his ouster. And now, as I just said, it's the great Democrat socialist replacement theory, as it's not just enough to get them out of power. They need to be replaced by the legions, the armies of Bernie Sanders' little Marxist socialists to take their place. And we're all for it. Let them win all of those primaries so we can actually have a battleground of ideas here where we don't have, the little Talbots wearing, oh, look at me, I'm a moderate, Abigail Spanberger, pretending she's not the Marxist that she is. No. Let's actually have this battle based on the ideological lines that must be drawn at this point. You're either with Bernie Sanders, AOC, Zohran Mamdani, and the Marxists, or you're with freedom and free enterprise and American values. I'm willing to have that election. Now, you may be thinking that we're cherry picking here, that we're only picking the most radical left-wing Democrats to make the case that Chuck Schumer has lost all of his support, that he is a dead leader walking. Okay, fine. Let's go to one of your moderates, one of your reasonables, coming from a purple state, a guy who was on the short list to be vice president with Kamala Harris and now is being rumored as a potential presidential candidate. Navy veteran, NASA astronaut, Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly was asked about his support for Chuck Schumer. This should be a no-brainer. This should be like falling off a log. Mark Kelly, well, of course he's going to support Schumer. He's one of the reasonable guys. He's one of the moderates, the centrists, right?
But it's Schumer. Hey, again, this is, I've been here 4.5 years now, and he's been the leader, and I understand why people look at this and say, well, this was kind of a rough, period.
The question was, do you have confidence in Schumer? The answer could easily have been yes, and yet it was not. Let's get off the sidelines, head into the arena. My panel is here, and we're going to start with CNN chief congressional correspondent.
That's right. It was not. Pretty easy question to answer, and Casey's right there. It's a yes or no question. Do you have confidence in Chuck Schumer? And the answer was, listen, I understand why it was a bit of a shit show. Yeah. Okay. Well, President Trump was also asked about the current status of where things are with the Democrats.
Some that are absolutely terrible. I look at this Crockett. This is a very low IQ person. And I look at somebody that comes from Somalia where they don't have anything. They don't have police. They don't have military. They don't have anything. All they have is crime. And she comes in and tells us how to run our country. The Constitution says this, the Constitution. The whole thing is crazy. I feel bad for some that are absolutely terrible.
Okay, so that's him reacting when asked, what do you think of this new crop of Democrats that are in charge? And he identifies Jasmine Crockett and Ilhan Omar, and you heard the assessment there. So, of course, Ilhan Omar needs to respond, as she does. And, well, you know what? I'll just let her speak for herself, and you can chew on it.
I mean, I have no worry. I don't know how they take away my citizenship and deport me, but I don't even know why that's such a scary threat. I'm not the 8-year-old who escaped war anymore. I'm grown. My kids are grown. I can go live wherever I want.
Okay. So I guess people are suggesting that she might be deported and her citizenship can be stripped from her, which I don't know if that's the case, although who knows? We live in a fascinating time, but she says she doesn't worry about that. She can go live wherever she wants. Go ahead, deport me. And by the way, it should be pointed out that when that video was posted, the White House actually responded in their own very distinctive way. Just perfect. Perfect. What a time to be alive. A+. No notes. That's what I voted for. Oh, what a time to be alive. It's exhilarating and exciting, and there's nothing but positive outlooks on the horizon, unless you're Chuck Schumer. Let's be blunt. Gold is kicking butt right now. It's up 40% this year. Not speculation. That's the actual data. Go check it out. In fact, I haven't checked today. It might be even better. If a portion of your saving isn't diversified into gold, you may be missing the boat. The fact is, inflation is still too high. Also, the U.S. dollar is still too weak, and the government debt continues to increase. That's why central banks are flocking to gold. They're the ones that are driving the price up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group and get in the door now. Birch Gold Group will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You don't pay a dime out of pocket. Just text Larry to 989898. Claim your free info kit. There's no obligation, just useful information. Gold's been around a long time and historically has been used as a safe haven. I'm talking about for millennia. You're not going to find anything else that has that kind of track record. Text Larry 989898 right now. Claim your free info kit on gold. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. All right. Yesterday, the panel over there at CNN got kind of fiery with Anna Navarro trying to make the moral and ethical argument. One more time. Yesterday, the roundtable on CNN there with Abby Phillips, it got kind of fiery. Anna Navarro stepped up to make the moral and ethical and almost faith-based argument on behalf of Obamacare. Where would we be without Obamacare? It's done so much. And then Scott Jennings chimed in, and, well, Anna Navarro immediately looked like a fool. And then Scott Jennings wasn't done. Let's start with this.
The idea that you can't get kicked out of health care because of a pre-existing condition, the idea that there's no caps, all of these things are things that we've all benefited from, particularly the neediest amongst us. Look, I think this issue is not going to go away. And we're going to be talking about this because we're going to hear horrible stories. Mm-hmm. People are not going to be able to afford their insurance. I don't think even with subsidies, they're going to be able to afford the premiums that are hiking up 100, 200, 300%.
Wasn't Obamacare supposed to fix that?
When people, not without the universal. I mean, there's
Affordable Care Act.
Yeah,
Affordable was the first word.
The Republicans have been chipping away at the ACA, and I think this is going to be the death of the ACA, but it's also going to be the death of some Americans who don't go get screenings, who don't get diagnosed early enough in order to get treatment, who go in and instead of being stage 1 cancer are going to be stage 4 cancer. And we're going to hear horrible stories because Americans are going to choose to drop health insurance that they cannot afford. And we as a country have got to figure this issue out.
Okay, so we're going to hear horrible, horrible stories that the Democrats will send me in my daily talking point email, and I will repeat them without ever checking it. However, let's just be clear what she's saying here. If we dismantle the Affordable Care Act and people drop off of health insurance, first of all, she assumes that there's going to be no other way for people to get medical services that will be less expensive than paying the astronomical amounts of money they're paying for health insurance because they're now forced to get it. It's almost like when the government forces you to buy a product and that product is owned by a very small number of people, in this case, the health insurance companies, then that means that they can drive the cost of that product up really high. And it's not like you can say, oh, well, I'm not going to buy that product now because, in fact, it's against the law for you not to buy that product. That's what Obamacare was all about. We predicted this, of course, at the time. But no, she's claiming that if people are going to be allowed to get off their health insurance, that means, A, they're not going to get any kind of health care coverage, even if it's cheaper to obtain on the open free market without being forced into these health insurance models that Obamacare forced onto you. And B, that means that people are going to die. which of course is the scare tactic that's used every time they try to propose a larger government takeover. But you see, it wasn't that long ago. We can play back the videos and all of the lies that they told you, from starting with, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health insurance, you can keep your health insurance. Lie, lie. And by the way, this is going to make it a lot more affordable for you to get that preventative care so you don't die. See, because if you don't get health insurance, you don't get your preventative care, you're going to die. But now the argument has changed a little bit. Now the argument is, oh, sure, it's like 5 times more expensive and nobody can afford it, but it's better that than dying because you didn't get cancer pre-screening and what have you. Which, listen, may be a legitimate argument, but certainly wasn't the argument we were sold when we allowed the government under duress to take over 1/5 of the American economy and force all of us into these unsustainable insurance models. We weren't told, listen, everything's going to be more expensive and we're going to make you get it because otherwise people will die. You may have won the argument, but see, what they told us was, we're going to force everybody onto insurance. Everyone's going to get their pre-screenings. They're going to be healthier. That's going to keep people from dying. And oh, by the way, it's all going to be more affordable. That's where Scott Jennings jumped in there. It only took one sentence to destroy Anna Navarro and leave her in a little bit of a heap of an incoherent mess, which was, I'm sorry, Affordable Care Act. Affordable was the first word. And you failed. Now, speaking of failure, the discussion then turned to the government shutdown, who won and lost. And Anna Navarro admits, at least, honestly, the Democrats did lose. But the reason why, it's amusing to say the least.
I know a lot of Republicans. I know a lot of Democrats. They're cut from different cloths. Democrats simply don't have the cold-heartedness necessary to see people suffering and just say, let them eat cake.
Yeah, but then
they are not the types that
they voted repeatedly to do it. I mean, you just heard Democrats.
And what was Donald Trump doing in the meantime?
He doesn't have a vote in the legislature.
No, he's the president of the United States, the most powerful president with Republicans in my lifetime, Scott. He never once even told them, come back to Washington.
We just played
Democrat. You guys
Democrat.
have been out of Washington for a month and a half.
Correct.
A month and a half.
We just played Democrat after Democrat admit that the Democratic plan to prolong the shutdown was causing, quote, suffering. That was their words, not mine. Democrats themselves realized the tactic of suffering was no longer something they could personally stomach. That was their party, not Republicans.
That's right. And that is the key there. Here's Anna Navarro trying to say, well, listen, Democrats just don't have the stomach for letting the American people suffer. And yet they voted specifically to have the American people suffer. So they were fine with it for a while. It just reached a point where they were done. Okay. And Republicans didn't do anything to fix it. That's because Republicans didn't do the thing that caused the suffering. See, the only thing that would have ended the suffering is opening the government, and Republicans passed the bill to open the government. So now they're trying to lie to you and say, oh, it's because Republicans are heartless. Now, you may notice the gentleman sitting to Scott Jennings' left. He's a member of Congress. That's James Clyburn, representative from South Carolina. And, well, he was given an opportunity to lie to the table, and, well, he made the most of it. Sadly, though, his lies don't really stand up to even a modest little challenge, and that's what he got, and that's when it all fell apart.
Question is, if you didn't get the one thing that you were holding out for, what was it all for?
Well, I think we saw some things that we have not talked about that did happen. We saw what has happened with SNAP. I think that came out of this. What is happening with WIC, Women, Infant, and Children programs. So some things did happen.
Well, that's quite an answer to the question. Okay, so you went through all of this because you wanted to increase and sustain the subsidies for Obamacare. You didn't get that. So what was the point? Well, you know, the SNAP. We have funded SNAP throughout the rest of the fiscal year, September of 26. Of course, there was no one at the table to follow up and say, sir, that bill was already there sitting, waiting for you to vote for it. That was already appropriated. That's part of the Department of Agriculture funding appropriations that the House had sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk for months. So it's not really a win for the Senate to actually do their job and vote for the bill that has already been passed and sitting there waiting. They wanted one thing. They didn't get it. So what was the point? He couldn't answer, and it got worse.
When two courts said to Trump,
Mm-hmm.
feed these children,
Mm-hmm.
he has appealed that.
Why can't those
Why
two
won't he
judges?
feed the children?
Why won't Democrats feed the children? Why don't we have Why don't we have two judges say to Democrats, you must vote to open the government because kids are hungry?
Here's the thing.
Do two
judges?
unelected judges have that authority?
Just
No, that
answer
makes
the
sense.
question. You can answer the question with your question all you want to, but the fact of the matter is,
An unelected judge probably does not have the authority to tell the executive branch what to
There are
do.
three different branches of government. This
They
is like
can
and they did.
And SNAPs
Supreme
work
Court.
without. Do you believe as a member of Congress, a judge can compel the executive to spend money that you haven't appropriated?
yes, I do.
All right. Now, I'm going to let this finish, but this is a critically important moment. It's a really simple question. And by the way, if you've seen Schoolhouse Rock, you should be able to answer that question, which clearly James Clyburn hasn't. And James Clyburn has been a sitting congressman for decades now. And James Clyburn was just asked a very simple question, an important, powerful question from our colleague here at the Salem Media Network, Scott Jennings. Check out his radio show and podcast. He said, because Clyburn's complaining that the Trump administration challenged this judge's ruling about funding SNAP benefits. Now, the legislative branch holds the purse strings. They appropriate money for programs. The executive branch then carries it out. As you know, the Democrats refused to fund the government. So there is no money for any programs. And they are allowed, the executive branch is allowed to spend money that they don't have yet appropriated for the vital necessities of national security, things like the TSA and air traffic controllers and our military. Basically, they have them work and continue to function without paying their salaries. That's how it works. And then they'll get paid theoretically when the government gets refunded. But the SNAP benefits, the food stamps, that doesn't fall under that. So here's a judge telling the president, you have to spend this money. And the president responded and saying, that money doesn't exist. The legislative branch is in charge of appropriating money. They hold the purse strings. Article 1 of the Constitution. James Clyburn, a member of that body, a member of the House of Representatives, was just asked, do you think a judge has the power and authority to force the executive branch to spend money that the legislative branch didn't allocate and appropriate? And he said, yes. Because his raw hatred of Donald Trump, his pure, unabated partisanship for his party, supersedes everything, supersedes logic, supersedes the Constitution, supersedes 200 and almost 50 years of precedent on how this constitutional republic has functioned and has stayed a stable, free country, more or less, for that long. It doesn't matter. And look at the expression on Scott Jennings' face. Because he's shocked, he can't believe it. And his follow-up here is beautiful. Let's let him slam dunk. The ball has been alley-ooped now. And now here comes the slam.
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we didn't want kings.
Nobody
Maybe we
wants
need
king.
king for a day. What do we need? I mean, that is
Judge-
literally a king spending money that is not
The
appropriated.
judge is not a king. The
No, you're
judge-
turning the president into one if he
No,
can
no.
spend without appropriation.
Well, now, if you got a rainy day fund, it was appropriated at
Correct.
one time. The fund didn't come out of the air. The money is sitting there. Now, they didn't appropriate it yesterday or the day before, but the money was appropriated last year sometime, and the rainy day fund was there.
All right. Did you follow that? But it's the perfect answer. I'm sorry. I thought we just had a no kings march. You just said that it's okay for a judge. And again, rainy day fund. No. That wasn't the question. The question was, do you think a judge has the power and the ability to order a president to spend money on a program if Congress has not appropriated the money for it? He said yes. That is literally what a king would do. That is literally a person coming in and just ignoring Congress altogether, ignoring the law, spending money that isn't there and not appropriate. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Burn up all your no king signs and all the swag that you got from Soros paying for your marches and demonstrations 2 weeks ago. Because you're all hypocritical liars. The more, though, it got even better.
With all respect, you cannot put on the American people that Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government? Democrats or Republicans?
Who was
casting the votes?
Scott, who was wanting to cut SNAP benefits?
Nobody.
And who was playing up
SNAP
SNAP benefits after 2 courts ruled that it was unallowed?
Republicans voted to fund SNAP 15 times. Democrats voted to defund it 15
and you talk
times.
About
and
the
now
affordable,
it took, and we had to get 8 to join us.
You talk about the Affordable Health Care Act. Okay.
It's terrible.
Landmark legislation is not perfect. We understand that Democrats, Republicans, independents, 70% of Americans, not Democrats, not just independents, 70% of Americans believe that they should increase those subsidies past the dead mark of December, the COVID era subsidy benefits. So it's a huge, huge thing that Democrats, Republicans, 70% agree with. And look, when it comes to the government shutdown, I was of the persuasion that to go for it, I didn't really get it. Democrats wanted a fight. They got a fight. Chuck Schumer, back in last year, didn't fight. He got a lot of flack for it, particularly in his home state of New York. So they wanted a fight, but they found a fight that was worth fighting with talking about the Affordable Health Care Act. People were with them. Democrats were leading in the polls. We won big on Tuesday.
That's what it was for, right? It was for the election, right?
Well, I think we should have kept going. What I don't understand, and which I would love others to help me out and understand, I don't understand why we caved so soon when the American people seemed to be on our side.
Because the election ended. You just said it. It was for the election.
Listen,
the election ended.
Yeah, he had me on I don't understand, because I think that's the only understandable, logical, honest thing that young man just said. I don't want to dunk on the guy because of his age, Dylan Douglas. He's got a Sirius XM radio show there called Young Americans with Dylan Douglas. Let me just say this, though, because far be it for me to criticize a fellow talk radio host and a fellow streamer, podcaster, what have you, but I had to tell you, in the battleground for ideas and those of us who try to persuade you and educate you and entertain you and inform you about the news of the day, especially when it comes to politics, on the right of center side of the equation, boy, oh boy, the competition is fierce. You can go to the top rated podcasts on Apple or on this platform that you're watching right now. By the way, now that I mention Apple, go to our audio podcast and give us a ranking, give us a 5-star rating, and subscribe to us over there. It helps with our rankings. But if you go to the rankings over there, you look at the top 10, 50 podcasts of news commentary and political ideas, it's overwhelmingly conservative voices. It is incredibly competitive in this battleground that I participate in. Over on the left, well, I mean, that guy has a show. That guy has a show on a major corporate satellite company. That guy. And when you wonder why the Democrat leadership is looking sort of confused and dazed and erratic because they're following and listening to their base, that's him. That's his base. And that was sad. And I got to say, Scott Jennings had incredible discipline in taking it easy on him and not beating him up too bad. Also, by the way, not to pile on Dylan Douglas, because it's not fair. Let's face it. When you're young and you're sort of new in the whole world of communicating ideas and policy and politics, you try to take your cues from the leadership of the party you're aligned with. And over there, he's got Hakeem Jeffries. So let's see how he does with a really simple question brought by Manu Raju of CNN, a buddy, a pal, a friendly, a really easy kind of question that he should be able to answer.
Was it the shutdown worth it?
Did you hear the question? Because he's off mic. I'll repeat it for you. Was the shutdown worth it? Okay, Hakeem Jeffries. He's the leader in the House for the Democrats. He should be able to answer that question. It's an easy one. Was the shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people. First of all, Donald Trump and Republicans are the ones who shut the government down. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And the American people know it. And that's been the case for 7 consecutive weeks.
But, you know, at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want. So was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
Wow. That is so painful and so cringe and so pathetic that we have to watch it again together. Shall we?
Was it the shutdown worth it?
Was the shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people.
He has waged a battle on the American people. On the American. What do you mean on behalf of the American people? You harmed the American people. Well, it's for your own good. There's got to be, you know, but we got to have leverage somehow. Okay. Battle on behalf of the American people. Yeah. And what else?
First of all, Donald Trump and Republicans are the ones who shut the government down. They have.
I love it that he realized that he had to go back on talking point, because the question was the shutdown worth it? And he acknowledged, well, yeah, we were responsible, but at least we were battling. And then he said, oh, wait a second. Hold on. What are you asking me for? We weren't responsible for it. It was the Republicans and Trump. They shut down the government. Forget what I said. So he's already stepping on his own talking point. Yeah, it was their fault. So what are you asking me if it was worth it? We didn't want it to happen. Wait, so you weren't responsible for the shutdown, and yet you were battling on behalf of the American people. How exactly did you battle on behalf of the American people if you're now claiming that you weren't even responsible for the battle? All right. We tried every day to open the government. Republicans kept voting no. Oh, wait, that was us.
The House, the Senate, and the presidency. And the American people know it. And that's been the case for 7 consecutive weeks.
But, you know, at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want. So was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
At the end of the day, the fight. So either you're at the end of the day or not. I'm sorry. Is the battle over? Because everything's past tense. The fight lives on. God, they're bad. They're really bad. One of the better communicators for the left is Van Jones. And wait till you see how he framed this. So Van Jones has now decided that the Democrats won in the long run. This was a huge victory for Democrats. The level of cope needed to get to this point, cope, C-O-P-E. I'm not suggesting that Van Jones in any way is snorting powder. No. I would never. No. The level of cope needed to reach this point where you rationalize your utter humiliating defeat as if it were a victory. Just you make sense of this for me, shall you? I know it's my job, but I don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm up to it.
Look, right now, Democrats are going to kick each other and tear each other up and be mad at each other. But when the smoke clears for most Americans, something has been proven here. Republicans are just not that into Americans right now. I mean, how much pain were the Republicans willing to let Americans suffer so they didn't have to? They're just not that into America. They were willing to let planes fall out the sky. They're willing to let children starve. They're willing to let federal workers get evicted from their houses rather than sit down and cut a deal on health care. Like everything that David Urban just said is correct. There's a smarter, better way to do health care. And an opportunity was put forward this past 6 weeks to sit down and talk about it. Republicans didn't do it. They were willing, Donald Trump and Republicans were willing to let planes fall out the sky and children starve before they came to the table. So when Democrats get finished beating themselves up, look at the tattoo you just put on the Republican Party. They don't care about your health care. And so I think take the win on this, Democrats, and keep moving. You had 7 million people in the streets. But I'll give you a term. You had 7 million people in the streets. That's a good thing. You kicked their butts last week when it comes to the vote. That's a good thing. And you just exposed these guys as not caring about regular Americans. I think that's a good couple of weeks for Democrats, but we're still going to be mad at each other about it for no reason.
There you go. You know what? I'm with Van. Take the W, Democrats. In fact, more of this, please. Yeah, it's a real win. It's a real W, obviously. Van Jones knows more about, in fact, he's forgotten more about politics than I'll ever know. He's much smarter than me. Absolutely. This was a huge victory for Democrats. They did not get what they told us they wanted. They have to lie about the circumstances of the shutdown when asked about the circumstances of the shutdown and blame Republicans for it. And everybody's calling for Chuck Schumer's head on a platter because they think that he failed, even though it was a win, according to Van Jones. There, I did. I made sense of it all. Didn't I? You know that gold is through the roof right now. 40% it's gone up this year. Go ahead and check it out for yourself. If a portion of your saving isn't diversified into gold, you're probably missing the boat. Fact is, inflation is still pretty high. The U.S. dollar is still pretty weak, and the government debt is increasing. That's why central banks are turning to gold right now. That's one of the things driving up the prices to record highs. There's a lot of other factors as well. The bottom line is it's not too late for you to buy gold from Birch Gold Group. Get in the door now. Birch Gold is going to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. And I want to be clear, you're not paying a penny out of pocket. We're not asking for any of your money. This is money you've already got in a bank account right now. You're just going to convert it into a 401k or, into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. You just want to text Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898. You're going to get a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation for doing this. You're just going to get information. Text Larry to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold and protect your future today with Birch Gold. Over there on Morning Joe, they're not used to having an intelligent, reasonable conservative explaining the policies of President Trump. And so imagine how ugly it was when the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, sat at the table there with the whole Morning Joe crew. And it began with a humiliating enterprise. He was challenged with the left-wing Democrat talking point that always goes repeated without any sort of fact basis to it on the Morning Joe set, which is, we just bailed out a foreign country. How is it America first when you bail out Argentina? You hear it everywhere on the left, on MSNBC, on Morning Joe, on George Stephanopoulos, on CNN. That's a talking point that they repeat all the time, and they never bother to actually learn the truth about it. So now watch what happens when Scott Bessent, in just like an assassin, slices and dices the talking point and douses it with truth.
So, Mr. Secretary, amid this discussion of costs and prices and affordability, how does a $20 billion bailout of Argentina help Americans? You're the president's point person on that. Can you explain to those here who are feeling the pinch, including America's farmers, why the United States is helping out Argentina?
Well, do you know what a swap line is?
It's currency swap, yes.
Yes, but what is that?
You're the Treasury Secretary.
Yes, but why would you call it a bailout?
That is how.
In most bailouts, you don't make money. The U.S. government made money. We used our financial balance sheet to stabilize the government. One of our great allies in Latin America, during an election, the president there won in a landslide. The government's going to make money, and I would rather use peace through economic strength than have to be shooting at narco boats coming offshore if the government collapsed. We have a generational opportunity in Latin America to create allies. We just saw an election in Bolivia. We're probably going to see an election in Colombia. We've seen them in Ecuador. We're going to see them in Chile. So by stabilizing the economy there and making a profit, then that's a very good deal for the American people. And there's a lot we could have been doing for American farmers, but Democrats closed the government.
So how has the United States made money off of this? You talk about trying to make more regional.
All right, let me pause it there for a second, because I just want to, there's more to this, as you can see. But there's one little moment I want to show you if you missed it. This is stuff that they've never heard. They've never heard the truth, the fact, and we haven't addressed this because honestly, this whole narrative that we bailed out Argentina has been a bogus, fake talking point. We haven't brought it up. It hasn't been really making the top 10 of our topic selections for the last month or so. But I'm glad that it's there now, because it gives us an opportunity to mock the stupidity of the people at the MSNBC newsroom, and specifically on Morning Joe, because I want to remind you, it's a news show and these are news people. This is a reporter. this guy, Jonathan Lemire, is it, I think, from NBC News. Their job is to know the news, but they don't know the news. They know their talking points. They know their agenda-driven talking points, which is, we just bailed out Argentina. Well, a bailout of Argentina means you open up your treasury and you write them a check because they're in debt and going under. I know that because that's what the government did under Obama and under Biden. We did it for corporations. We did it for foreign governments. That's what they do. How was that America first? I gotcha. Scott Bessent is like, it wasn't a bailout. We made available a line of credit if necessary, and we did a currency swap with them, which we've actually made money on already, and that stabilized the government. It ensured that they got an ally got reelected instead of somebody coming in there who's going to be a socialist or a Marxist. And this ends up building a relationship with a Latin American country, by the way, a region of the world that's been neglected by the last 50 years worth of presidents. So this is all win, 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 win. And as he was explaining this, I want you to see it. I don't know if you saw it or not, but watch this guy. This is, again, Jonathan Lemire, I believe is his name, the reporter. And then, oh God, I forget his name now, but he's just an odious individual. He's been on the panel there forever. He's a former Boston Globe opinion columnist. And I think he got busted for plagiarism years back, but of course he's Scarborough's buddy. Watch them exchange glances here when you realize as they look at each other, and I don't think they knew they were on camera. They basically say, do you know what the hell he's talking about? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I've never heard of anything like this. They're ignorant of the news. They're ignorant of the facts. Scott Bessent, so smooth. Like I said, like an assassin with a blade. Watch it. Here it comes. They're going to cut over to him real fast here. They do a wide shot. Now watch them look at each other. Watch them glance at each other because they have no idea. What? Oh, did you see that? Did you see it? One more time. Watch. You know what he's talking about? I don't know. I have no idea. They've never heard this before because the only reason that is there ever an analyst, a conservative, right of center, pro-Trump analyst included in their roundtable discussions? No. It's these guys, Joe, Mika, Reverend Al, right? Molly Jong Fast. Oh, but today we're excited because we have a conservative to tell us the conservative perspective. Please welcome Bill Kristol. Right? That's what they do. The only reason they let this MAGA guy on is because he's the Secretary of the Treasury. So it was a good get. And for their pleasure, they actually got educated. All right. So it didn't end there. There's more. This is so good.
For American farmers, but Democrats closed the government.
So how has the United States made money off of this? And you talk about trying to make more regional relationships. The United States is shooting alleged narco boats in international waters off the coast of Venezuela. The United States has not provided evidence yet that those are indeed drug traffickers. So how are these two things working in tandem?
By the way,
we are preempting
the fact that he has to ask that question again belies his ignorance. Was that hard for anybody to understand? This is Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, explaining how we are forging a relationship with a friendly ally in Argentina, because the alternative, when you ignore Latin America and you let a country go into become an economic basket case, well, the next thing you know, they're sending narco terrorists to our shores to screw with our country because that's the only burgeoning economy they can have is narco trafficking. And their government is so corrupt and dysfunctional that they allow it to happen, like it's going on in Venezuela. So instead of shooting at narco terrorists, we're actually forging a relationship with Argentina and trying to build that relationship. How do you not understand why those two things are related? Wait, what do you mean instead of shooting narco terrorists? You are shooting narco terrorists. No, you asshole. I'm pointing out shooting narco terrorist boats as failures of previous administrations in strengthening our relationship with foreign countries. That will be what ends up happening if you don't. So now we're starting from scratch with Argentina and we're showing you what can be done. You ignoramus. But again, I just want to keep reiterating to you, never take a back seat to these people with regard to intellect or any basic understanding of the news of the day. They're not gifted individuals, these reporters in D.C. The best they've got is a journalism degree. Please, have you had a conversation with somebody with a journalism major? You know, Hillsdale College, famously, they don't even offer journalism as a major. They got a great journalism department over there. And I know a lot of great graduates from Hillsdale College who are working journalists right now in Washington, D.C., but they did not major in journalism. Hillsdale refuses to allow it. You major in something else like history or English or literature or something important. These people don't, I cannot say it enough. They do not follow the news. They follow what's going on in their own little bubble. And they don't really have a sane understanding, a rational, logical understanding of the world around them and what's going on in the real world, like most people in Middle America. Famously, William F. Buckley said that he would rather be led by the first 100 names in the Boston, Massachusetts phone book. And there was a time when we had phone books, boys and girls. Go back and look it up. The first 100 people in the Boston phone book than by 100 professors at Harvard and Yale. And this is why. All right, so Scott Bessent now has to condescend to explain himself. And my favorite part is when Joe jumps in. This is Morning Joe. This is his show. But of course, he can't bother himself to leave his little garage studio in Florida where he pretends like he's in New York or Washington, D.C. with the backdrop. So at some point, Joe has to jump in on the television connection and say, hey, remember me? This is my show. And he thinks he's got the gotcha. So watch how this plays out.
Collapse of a government and going back to a Peronist agenda and a left-wing government. What if somebody had raised their hand and said, look at what's happening with Hugo Chavez, look at what's happening with Maduro, and they help the opposition there?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Secretary, I'm just curious, just to clarify, have we made our money back already from the Argentina bailout or the swap line or whatever you call it? Have we made that money back now? Are you saying we're going to make that money back from them over time? Like, what's the payout for that?
Joe, we already have a profit on that swap line.
So have we given them? Did we transfer $20 billion?
No,
and we've already gotten back?
Absolutely not. We made a line of credit available, and a small amount of it was drawn on, and we have made a profit on that.
On that so far. Okay, very good. Hey, Mike.
Okay, so I just need you to understand what happened right there in that exchange. For the first time on MSNBC, from the moment this credit swap and currency swap was announced with the government of Argentina, which was, 5 weeks ago, I want to say. For the first time on this all-news network, the factual truth of that story was relayed to the viewers of MSNBC. Up until now, this entire thing, in fact, Joe, even in his question, had to use the term bailout. So have we given the money in the bailout? Have we made money back on the bailout? What are you calling it again? What's that? It took the Treasury Secretary to go on MSNBC and actually do the work of the newsmen there to deliver the facts and information about our currency swap and credit line with the nation of Argentina, which, forget about being a bailout, forget about costing, not one penny out of the American Treasury was actually delivered in this case. In fact, quite the opposite. Our Treasury has grown because of the relationship with Argentina. And you didn't hear it from a newsman. You didn't hear it from any of the multi-million-dollar paid journalists and reporters that work for MSNBC. Scott Bessent did that job for them for free. Then he was asked about the affordability crisis. Now, understand something. The Trump administration came in and inherited sky-high inflation from the Biden presidency. And by the way, when they left, when they ended their presidency the first time, yes, there was a pandemic, but even before the pandemic, inflation was very much under control. It wasn't an issue. So now they inherit this sky-high inflation. For the last 11 months that they've been, 10 months, because we don't have the November numbers yet, for the first 10 months of the Trump presidency, inflation has dropped down to a much more manageable, like 2.25%, maybe 2.5%. Still not where it needs to be. But we've come from sky high Now we've knocked it down really well, but a lot of prices are still up there. Some prices have gone down. It certainly hasn't gone down to the level of the first Trump presidency. And the American people, we see this affordability thing as a cumulative effect over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. Trump and Bessent, they've been in power for 10 months now, and they're like, hey, we're doing great. But of course, most people are like, well, you're not doing great because things are too expensive, right? So then it's challenged. Well, what about affordability? By the way, I love the fact that they're all calling it affordability now. Before Zohran Mamdani decided that that was the market-tested word to use for inflation. See, before that was inflation. Inflation's insane. And everyone say, yeah, inflation's insane. Now Zohran Mamdani says, oh, no, it's not inflation. It's affordability. It's the same thing. It means everything is more expensive than it should be. And it's expensive sometimes because there's actually legitimate reasons for things to cost more. But when it's inflation, it's because prices are exploding because of government deeds, because government has done something to f up the economy, like what Biden did, right? And so now Bessent is asked about that, and he's got a great answer.
We inherited an affordability crisis. We have slowed the price increases down, and they are going to continue to slow down, and that real working class wages will go up, and that will address the affordability issue. And, I think this is what Democrats are afraid to do. They've gone to the courts to try to stop President Trump and this great economy. That hasn't worked. They get overruled at SCOTUS. We go to the media, who carries their water. That hasn't worked, so they shut down the government and hurt the economy. Let's keep the economy open, let our policies kick in, and let's see if what I just talked about, let's see if those two lines cross. Costs come down, real wages go up, and then we can have an election next November.
Honestly, the expressions of Willie Geist here are just priceless during these exchanges. But again, a brilliant job by Scott Bessent. He's such an asset to this administration and real superstar here, the Treasury Secretary. His next question, this entire interview was just, yeah, but what about this? Okay, fine, you made a good point there, but what about this? And so now it was time to ask about tariffs. Yeah, but the tariffs are really screwing everything up. Right. I bet you don't have an answer for that, do you?
I think that the tariffs help consumers because we are able to, if you go back and look, they brought down the budget deficit. And MIT came out with a study that said that 42% of the great inflation was caused by the big deficit spending. So as you bring down deficit spending, inflation will come down. And the tariffs, right now we take in substantial tariff income. Over time, that will rebalance as the factories move to the U.S., and that will become the corporate income or wage income. And by bringing down the budget deficit, we are bringing down inflation.
All right. Did you follow all that? It is a masterclass. And listen, you can have your own opinions about tariffs. And I think that so far, I think the jury is still out, but it's been a net benefit right now in terms of being able to negotiate deals with foreign countries, not just on trade, but it's been used as a leverage item and a national security item on things like fentanyl, things like increasing military spending from our NATO allies, and also getting our NATO allies to participate in the peace deal in the Middle East. These things are all intertwined when you're dealing with foreign governments, foreign policy, national security, and yes, the economic aspects of tariffs. But what Scott Bessent just said there in like 35 seconds is a bit of a masterclass on what the Trump policy is with regard to tariffs. Right now, we're charging tariffs so we can equalize our trade deficits with foreign countries. That income will come in and it'll help pay down the deficit. It's already started to work. That said, when companies want to avoid those tariffs, the only way to do it right now is to onshore and bring manufacturing to the United States of America. And as they begin doing that, it doesn't happen overnight, but we've got commitments from a lot of companies, and they're onshoring right now. They're building up that infrastructure. They're building their factories. They're acquiring the equipment for it. By the way, the big, beautiful bill also helps them finance all of their new equipment they're acquiring for those factories and amortizing that or capitalizing it across many, many years. That's a big thing that was hidden in the big, beautiful bill. You're welcome. I just fed you that talking point you can use with your friends. Then when you do that, you're going to start hiring Americans. And so what happens? That thing that was being manufactured in a foreign country that you were paying tariffs for, and those tariffs were coming in to pay down our deficit, well, we're not going to get those tariffs anymore. But what you will get is the income tax revenue from those American workers who are now working at the factory here that weren't working before because the factory didn't exist. You get the corporate income taxes from their activities of acquiring things. So that sales tax and business-to-business taxes, plus the income tax that that corporation is making from manufacturing here in the United States. Plus, don't forget all of the residual economic impact from all of those employees working. They've got money in their pocket now, and then they're going to spend it on food and goods and services here in the United States. And also, don't forget that when you create a factory in the United States to onshore all of the stuff you were doing in China or Malaysia or God knows where else, well, that factory isn't going to be an island. There's going to be a gas station near that factory for all the employees who are coming to work there. There's going to be a Starbucks. There's going to be a 7-Eleven. There's going to be all these other restaurants and fast food places that are going to start to prop up right where that factory is, because suddenly you've got hundreds, if not 1,000 workers coming to that factory, and small businesses are going to be created to service those employees as they're coming and going to work. You can call that trickle-down economics if you'd like, but it's basic free market principles that always happen when you let the economic engine of free market in the United States unleashed and go. Uninhibited and unharnessed by the government forcing regulations or forcing wage conditions or environmental conditions that compel a corporation to say, you know what, it's not worth it to manufacture here in the United States. Let's go do it in China, especially since there's no tariffs. So we can just manufacture there, import the goods here. It's cheaper, and why not? Well, now that option isn't on the table in the way that it was, and that's what'll end up happening. That's how the free market works. You know how I know? Because I recently saw a woman on CNN tell me that the lack of SNAP benefits right now is affecting the place she goes to get her eyebrows done. 2 people were going to lose their job because women who aren't getting SNAP benefits anymore are spending their money on food for their children instead of going to the salon. That's another way of looking at it. But it's all the same basic free market economic principles. Let businesses thrive. Let them hire Americans. Let them manufacture here in America. And everything starts to grow. That's Scott Bessent. That's your Treasury Secretary. And that is a smug, self-satisfied look on his face, which I absolutely adore, and he's earned it. What a time to be alive. And while we're talking about the economy, you should know that gold is up around 40% this year. I'm not just speculating. I'm not guessing. I'm not projecting. That's reality. And if a portion of your savings isn't diversified into gold, you're probably missing the boat. The fact is, inflation is still too high. The U.S. dollar is still too weak. Government debt is still increasing. That's why central banks are flocking to gold, and that's part of what's driving up gold prices to record highs. The good news is it's not too late. You can buy gold from Birch Gold Group. Get in the door now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You don't pay a dime out of pocket. Just text my name, Larry, to 989898. Claim your free info kit. There's no obligation, just useful information. Gold historically has been used as a safe haven in economic hardship for millennia. Text Larry to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold and protect your future today with Birch Gold. Whew. That's the end of today's show. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as I mentioned, you want to help the show out, won't cost you a damn thing. But if each and every one of the people watching right now just quickly subscribe to our show over on Apple or Spotify, you give us a 5-star rating, give us a review, and my goodness, you'd be helping us bigly. And we'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for subscribing to whatever platform you're watching on right now. All right. And I want to remind you, I'm on vacation very quickly. I don't want to tell you exactly when. I want it to be a surprise, but it's imminent. And while I'm on vacation, I'm going to be giving you regular updates, irregular updates on my reaction to news events as they happen. So I want you to be a subscriber so you can get those updates as they go, because they won't be at our regular show time. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Let's check out your super chats. I saw we hit our goal again here, Lou Gunn. I saw we hit our goal. Stumble Boots and Garfield. $2 super chat. You're cool too, Stumble Boots. Thank you for that regular and loyal support. Jeff Depew Sr., $2 super chat. And Mrs. Dominion and Mr. Smartmatic always help Dems win. Why are you trying to get me canceled? Thank you, Jeff Depew. I appreciate that. Sharon Tillingcast. There's a new name. Hello, Sharon. What a lovely smile. $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that support. It means a lot to us. Thank you. Oh, and a comment from Sharon Tillingcast. $2. We need to build asylums. They are crazy. I'm guessing you're talking about the Democrats. And yes, you are correct. They are insane. Cal Hen, that's a new name too. $5 super chat. Bottom line is the judges are trying to be kings. Yeah, I know. It's such a great point. No kings, no kings, no kings. Also, this judge can do whatever he wants. He can order everybody to do anything regardless of the election. But no kings. No, what it means is no Trumps. That's really what they mean. Thank you, Cal Hen. Psychological projection. It's good to see you, my friend. Cheerio. £2 super chat. Pardon me. Didn't mean to insult you. Seems Dems would rather create than solve problems. Yeah, absolutely. They wanted more of it. They're angry that they didn't keep creating the problems. That is correct. Thank you, PP, for that. God's best friend, £2 super chat. Chainsaw. Kevin?
Maybe it's
Argentina. Malay with the chainsaw. There you go. Got it. GBF, another £2 super chat. Argentina to send aid to MSNBC. Gaza's not involved with this one? All right, that's probably funnier. You're right. Lou Gunn, there she is. $1.99 super chat. Here's number 10. Press the like button. There you go. You timed it out too, Lou Gunn. Thank you for that. Lovely, lovely. Patrick with a £10 super chat. Dems' lies are incomprehensible. We hear nobody watches MSM and nobody trusts it. So how was it Dems' messaging seemed to be winning? What one thing would you advise Trump team to do different to counter? Okay, let's break this down. Nobody watches MSM. Nobody trusts it. How was it Dems' messaging seemed to be winning? Okay, well, if you look at the two places where the election just took place, Northern Virginia in the D.C. market and New Jersey in the New York market, those may be two outliers and exceptions to the rule of mainstream media, number one. Because those are the bastions of the New York Times and the Washington Post, as well as the local networks there. So in that election, that did take the case. So I don't think Dems' messaging is winning. Maybe in the election, the messaging was winning. Also in Virginia, I think you had a challenging candidate on the Republican side, who, as much as I love her, was not a strong candidate to deliver messaging. So that's an answer to that. What one thing would you advise Trump team to do different to counter the messaging? I think they're doing a pretty good job, and I would never presume to give them advice on messaging necessarily. What one thing would you advise Trump team to do different?
I would tell them to send Scott Bessent and put him on MSNBC in the morning.
I mean, that they did a pretty good job this morning, didn't they, Kevin? Yeah. I do want to say, I'll jump in there. I think it's a good example, Kevin, of what we need more of. The high point of the Trump administration's messaging success was when J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Pete Hegseth, and others were sort of doing a full court press out there. And I think that they've downshifted a bit. I also think during the government shutdown, they withdrew themselves because they wanted this to be a legislative branch fight instead of the executive branch being that plugged in. I think they need to reset after the Christmas holidays and jump on board and do another full court press to force their topics and their issues on the mainstream media. And I think that they have downshifted a bit and they have let up a little bit from the first 6 months of the administration, and they need to redouble their efforts there. So it's similar to what Kevin said. Thank you for that, Patrick. Vengeance is God's with the 499 super sticker. Thank you for that, VIG. I appreciate it. And Lou Gunn with the $1.99 super chat. Enjoy your vacation. I will, but it's not quite yet. We will be back tomorrow. Say, Beth Walburn with 5 stars today and always. Thank you, Beth. That's a lovely $2 super chat, and I appreciate the 5 stars. That is it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, not the same time. Have we locked in our time for tomorrow?
We'll be early.
It'll be earlier than usual. So keep an eye on the channel. Make this a good reason right now to hit that bell so you can get alerts, even if it's just for a day, because tomorrow our go time will be a little earlier than usual. Stay tuned. And that is it. We'll see you. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.